Good evening and welcome to the July 10th, 2023 meeting of the Tupelo Planning Committee. Please take a moment to silence your cell phones. At this time, please rise for the invocation given by Pam Hadley and the Pledge of Allegiance given by Victor Flightus.
We pray. Our Father in heaven, dear Lord, we thank you, Lord, for this gathering today, Lord, just for allowing us to be in this day, Lord. We just thank you, Lord, that you have brought us together here. We just pray, Lord, that you will just be with us as we make decisions, Lord. Just help us to unify this committee as one, Lord. And we pray, Lord, that our decisions will be pleasing to you. We do thank you, Lord, and we do love you. We do pray this prayer in your Son, Jesus' name. Amen.
Turn to the flag, salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The Tupelo Planning Committee is a volunteer group appointed by the mayor and approved by the city council. We receive no compensation for this as we do it as a community service. We spend a lot of time on our own funds studying and researching the applications and visiting the sites that are on our agenda each month. We ask that you remember that we do not take our positions on any application lightly. Our decisions are based on facts as they are presented and with regard to the regulations set forth in the development code. At this time, I would ask the staff and committee members to introduce themselves, starting with the staff, and remember to speak into the microphone.
Dennis Bonds, Interim Director of Development Services.
Jenny Safely, City Planner.
Mark Williams.
Lindsay Leak.
Pam Hadley.
Leslie Mart.
Patty Thompson.
Victor Fleitas.
Scott Davis.
Russ Wilson, Zoning Administrator.
We'll start with our agenda item number 2, review of the minutes. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes of the last meeting?
I make a motion to accept.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Passes unanimously. Jenny, do you have anything to report on the council actions from our last meeting?
I do not at this time.
As far as old business, do we need to take that up with?
Yes, so just the first point, the text amendment 2202, and I think just to refresh us, so y'all were looking at both billboards and multifamily housing. Both those items are still in legal review, and we are working on them, so just know that. And the second item is a bit of an interesting project. In 19, I believe 4 or 5 of the committee members that are here now voted to approve a variance on a carport, an open carport in the Belvedere neighborhood to allow it to be built on the property line instead of 5 feet from the property line, which is the traditional setback in that area. And what happened at the time, typically an application is put in at the time a variance application is received. And once a construction application is received, if no movement happens on that within the year, then it becomes null and void. However, loophole, a variance application was submitted without a construction application. So they were really just requesting before they had the contractor work done, whether or not the variance would be granted. So a little bit of an odd situation. In that case, that variance doesn't formally expire. We don't have codified expiration on that. And so they've asked, they were delayed in their process due to some other house renovation, financial burdens, and also COVID got in their way. So what they've asked is instead of coming before Planning Committee again with that application, and my preference would be that we just have a vote to continue their variance so that they would then be allowed to put in a construction application. The additional layer to this is that the Belvedere overlay has created a design review board with design review standards, much like many of our neighborhoods have since the time the variance was allowed. So what I would like us to just engage with is allowing that variance to continue in order for them to make application, but that application would then have to go through overlay, and overlay would need to also approve this variance Typically, planning committee would trump overlay. I would just like you guys to give your go-ahead, since y'all did already, and defer back to overlay on this, really, if that's okay.
Is there any discussion or a motion?
I move that we approve.
A motion
Oh, I'll second.
and a second. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Unanimous? We're now ready for the new business portion of our meeting.
Yes, sir. Last month, the planning committee approved a 170-foot telecommunications tower on Belden Pike. It's a Verizon cell tower. Appeal has been presented for that decision, and it will be heard before City Council on August the 1st. July 17th, we will bring that before council in a work session to discuss. There's no public hearing at that portion. It's just staff reviewing that appeal with City Council. If any members of the planning committee would like to be present for that, you might be called upon for questions. However, there's, again, no public portion of that, but an appeal hearing will be held on the 1st as part of regular City Council meeting.
Are you saying that it would be advisable that somebody, or however many folks from the planning committee, be at the work session on the 17th?
If someone is available, I think that would be good, just in case they have follow-up questions, so I don't speak on your behalf.
So what time?
What time is that?
4 o'clock.
Here?
And yes, ma'am. And that's open to the public, but again, just no public comment section.
All right, and then the actual presentation to the board after the work session is August 1st?
That'll just be the formal appeal hearing, and then City Council will make a decision at that meeting.
And we should have somebody representing the board there as well?
That's not necessary unless somebody would like to speak at that point, but I think the work session is more appropriate for you all.
If there are no other questions, we'll move in to the first item on the agenda, which is Flex Variance 2304, 710 Chester Fence Appeal and Variance Request, Appeal of Overlay Design Review Committee, Disapproval of Fence as Built, and Variance Request to permit 6-foot fence along property line in front yard. Jenny, does the department have a perspective on this application?
Yes, we do. So this is a corner lot, and corner lots are considered in our code to have 2 front yards, meaning that the maximum height in a base zoning code would be 4 feet at the property line in a front yard, or anywhere beyond the front point of the structure. So I've got an image here of, you can't quite see the home, but you guys can tell the home is central sort of to this area. So the front point would be then this direction and anywhere this direction to either Maxwell or Chester. Joyner, which is where this property is located, has a design review board, much like the Belgier one that we just discussed. And their requirement is 36 inches beyond the front point of the house, where the fence would need to be 50% see-through, so with some kind of decorative gating, or they would even be comfortable with like hogged wire, in a decorative way, if you would. That sturdier kind of metal grate, which I think somebody else in the neighborhood has used. However, so what we have here, because that fence was built prior to us getting a permit out on that, overlay did not review, and is not, the structure as it is now is not a permissible structure based on the Joyner overlay design guideline standards. So what we're looking at, we're considering that a disapproval of the existing structure, or the structure that's been started without a permit. So we're looking at whether or not the committee would appeal that decision in order to permit the structure as it exists, which is about 6 feet, sitting on the property line. And you all have some images in your packet toward that. And then what that would require then is both that you appeal the overlays decision to disapprove. And then you would need to permit a variance because this then not only goes beyond the Joyner design guideline standards, but beyond our base zoning standards for a fence in the front yard. So you guys have some details of how this process has gone. And I wanted to correct, this afternoon we were reviewing again, and the original deck permit that we looked at wasn't on hold due to the home occupation permit, but rather the deck permit application wasn't completed. And so we just had a little, we clarified some of the complication today in office. So just if that makes a difference to you guys and how you're thinking about this project. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Would the applicant please come to the podium and state your name and address and present your case to the committee, please?
Before beginning, can I raise a point of order?
Yes.
At the work session, I had mentioned that I have a personal friendship with the applicant, and for that reason felt it would be appropriate that I recuse myself from considering this matter. Do I do that here and just not say anything? Do I move to the audience? What's the proper protocol and what consideration?
I think, Victor, we can consider you recused in this
Yes.
matter, if that's a good thing to do. Yes.
That's fine. I just wanted to make sure that I was, where I needed to be.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I need to do the same. Valerie is my neighbor, so I have to do the same.
Does that affect the quorum?
It's five.
Yes.
Yep.
That
It's
would be,
majority of 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5 of us.
that's right. You need to have a unanimous decision in order for a decision to stand based on that.
Okay.
Okay. Please continue.
Me,
Yes, ma'am. Mhm.
I'm Valerie Boyles, live at 17 Chester Avenue, in Joyner neighborhood. I groom dogs and I also keep dogs, for a living, that's what I do. I'm friends with most of my neighbors over there, and I was wanting to build a fence around my backyard, because my address is 710 Chester, is my address. That's where my mail goes to the front yard. I have a backyard back there where my back door goes to my backyard. And I want to build a 6-foot fence around there because I keep dogs. If I had a smaller fence, I would be scared that somebody would come and maybe steal dogs. I don't know. I've had a theft before at my house. That's been over a year ago. I called Lee County Tupelo Police Department. They came over. And I want a 6-foot fence. Now, I also one day want to put an above-ground pool there. And my neighbors should not be able to see me within about 46 inch or whatever. My neighbors all know me. And I want to put a 6-foot fence back there. And that's pretty much in my backyard, and that's what I'm here for.
Okay, thank you.
Can I say something?
Not from where you are. Let us, would it be appropriate for us to question Ms.
Yeah, we need
Boyles
to
right now?
address her first, and then
Okay, yeah,
the public portion, she can get up and speak.
Yeah, that's right. You'll have an opportunity to say something. So at this time, the committee will ask you questions. So are there any questions for the applicants at this time?
Why did you not get a permit for the fence?
I really don't know why.
Were you-
Because if you had come to get a permit, you would have realized that you have 2 front yards.
I disagree.
Well, it doesn't matter whether you agree or not, but that's what the city code says, that you have 2 front yards. And so therefore, what you are calling the backyard is actually the front. You front both Maxwell and Chester, and the same standards for a front yard apply to both sides of your house there.
Okay. I have probably over a dozen neighbors in the Joyner neighborhood that have the same property, kind of like I do, a corner lot, that have a 6-foot fence. And I've got pictures, and I can show y'all.
Do you know when that fence was constructed?
This fence fence?
The one that you're referring to.
Oh, there's plenty of them, there's not, I mean, there's probably 12 of them that I know of. I don't know when they were constructed.
Are in the front yard, they're in the front yards,
They have lots just like mine.
corner lots?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, they wouldn't have been constructed with a permit, because that's not allowed to build all the way to the street, 6 foot tall solid. Now, they may have, predate that code, and may be grandfathered in, or it may not be considered exactly the same situation, but this is a situation, it's not unusual. People come before us with 2 front yards, a corner lot, and the same setbacks apply to the front of the house and to the side facing the other street.
Okay. So my neighbors are supposed to see what I do?
No, I'm saying you back the fence up to the side of the property, to the side of the house, on that side of the property.
Do what? The fence.
I have pictures. If that's helpful.
The fence starts. I'll show you as soon as it comes up. Okay, there's my drop. There's my carport right there.
And the fence would be down that side of the house, lining up with the house.
On Maxwell, this is Maxwell Street.
He's referring to if you brought it back to
In
here.
line with the house is where it
Instead
should
of
be.
up front.
Am I correct
Yeah.
with that?
That's correct.
It
It's
should be in
beyond the
line
front
with the
point.
house is where the fence should be.
That would be in line with code.
Right there?
Yeah, if the line of the side of the house and the fence continued flush.
They should line up. That's where the fence should be, according to the code. This has nothing to do with the joint or overlay. This is city code.
City code, yeah.
So if they started right here and came out to my driveway,
Anything this direction would still apply, front yard fence standards would apply. But if you go back away from along the side of the house, you could do 6 foot.
okay.
Yeah, the front yard begins at the closest point to the street of the structure on both streets. So you can go all the way back to the, what would then be there, a side yard line from that. So from that closest point right there, you could go back parallel with the street all the way back to your property line. And the same on the other side, of going from the closest point of the house to Chester, all the way back, I guess, to the south to your property line. And that's with the 6 foot high.
Now, you can.
I mean, for a city code.
Yeah, I mean, you can have a fence that, was it 3 foot tall or 4 foot tall, that's 50% see-through, if you want to bring it out closer. But in order to have a 6 foot tall solid fence, it needs to be in line with the house on that side of the street, which is your second front yard.
The variance, I think, is that a sketch that you brought in?
I can't see that.
Well, yeah, come on up.
Do you understand what they're trying to do?
Because the copy was thin.
Yes, sir, that's fine.
Okay, well, as it's drawn there, the fence was in line with the deck, so that would be in compliance, or if it lined up with the fence with the house. But you just can't bring it all the way out to the property line. You can still have a privacy fence, but it's just not in the right spot.
So I can bring it to the deck.
Yeah, you can bring it to the deck or the corner of the house. Your neighbor to the east of you, when they come out of their driveway, they're blinded, and so there is a safety concern there. That's part of why that's the code.
Who these people over here?
These people here. Down here. Your
Lawrence
neighbors.
and them. Oh, Jeff, that's a rental house. He just made that. I don't see how it.
Do you understand what they're talking about, Val? If not, I'll show you.
Absolutely understand what they're
Great.
talking about. That just gives. don't know what else to say. My neighbors are, I mean, it's just a fence, y'all. It's just a fence. There's more things going on in the world than my fence. Anyway, I don't know what else to say.
Okay, are there any other questions for Ms. Walls?
No.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Walls.
Thank you.
Is there anyone here to speak for or against the application?
Yeah, I'd like to say something, please.
Oh,
Is that okay?
sure, yeah, come up if you'd state your name and address.
I'm Marla Ball, 1607 Joyner. I'm the mom. She's kind of nervous, but I just wanted to say she lives there with her 3 rescue dogs. And the letter she got said that it was at the corner where she couldn't build up to the corner of the street, which is up here, because of view problems. Now, you're saying that it has to do with lining up to the house. She came here because that's where a fence, see, there's a fence right there. There's a fence right there in the back, and that's why she came to there, because that's where that fence ended. And what you're saying is if she had to move up here, she's going to lose a good 20 yards of her yard. So that's why.
A fenced yard, that's correct.
Yeah, so that can be behind the solid fence. Yes, and that's part of the corner lot, being with 2 front yards.
Anyway, my son-in-law was building it for her. He was trying to get it finished before he leaves on a mission trip to Honduras in a couple of weeks. But that's my problem, is that she loses all of this. She loses all of that area right there if she has to move that fence. She's a great person, I just wanted to say.
Thank you, Ms. Walls. Yes, sir, if you'd please come to the podium.
My name's Lucas Berryhill. I'm the chairman of the overlay.
Address, please, sir, Mr. Berryhill.
I'm sorry,
Your address, please, sir.
1325 Caldwell.
Yes, sir.
And to Mr. Davis's question about the permit, I spoke to the applicant Friday morning. She had spoke to Russ several days prior to that. So she knew as of Friday morning, she needed a permit. She had spoke to one of the other members of the overlay. She knew she needed a permit. We spoke in depth regarding it over the phone. This is the second time we've dealt with the fact that it was something built after the fact. Or, excuse me, it was built prior to getting approval. So, I hate to say it in this way, but it seems like a pattern of knowing what to do, but feeling like that they'll get forgiveness rather than permission. So there's a reason for the code. I was on the planning committee back when Fred Rogers was the director. There's a reason for these codes. There's a reason why y'all update them every so often. It's for the neighborhood. It's for the city, not for one individual. There are many things that go on in the neighborhood that me personally, I would agree, there's bigger things going on. But as a neighborhood and as a city, I'm only one voice. But as the chairman of the overlay, I'm the voice of that committee. Just so you know, it was unanimous. All 5 voted against it. Any questions?
Anything? Thank you, Mr. Berryhill. We'll now close the public portion of this application, and we'll now open the committee discussion.
Well, it sounds like she was told plenty of times that this is not permissible. And if she would be willing to move it back to in sight with the house, I got no problem with that. I'm just afraid that at some point, if this doesn't get resolved quickly, doesn't the city come in and take over?
If the fence is not moved, since it's not in compliance, it would be turned over to code enforcement. And then code enforcement would follow that process of violation.
That's what I thought.
I'm sorry,
My son-in-law is going to Honduras, and he can do it when he gets back.
You have to speak into the microphone. Everything's recorded.
My son-in-law, who is building this, will move it. She saved up a long time to get this done, and he's building it for free for her. He doesn't live here, and he's going to Honduras on a mission trip. Now, can we stave that off until he gets back? We don't want somebody tearing it up until he gets back and he can fix it. Is that possible? To delay
Well,
that?
the steps, I think, would be after whatever decision the committee makes tonight, you have 3 days to appeal it to the city council. When they have a chance to hear it, at that point, they'll issue something to the effect of go ahead or code violation, and then they come in, and usually you have 10 days to either tear it down and rectify it or discuss it with the planning department.
Okay. That's not going to give him enough time to do it.
When will he return?
I'm sorry?
When will he return?
He will be back toward the end of the month. My granddaughter and he are both going, and he's leaving next week, next Thursday, and he'll be back, I don't remember the exact day, but it's toward the end of the month.
But that would give him time to take it down.
But he's doing the work.
Oh.
If he does the work, he can't do it. He works, he has a job,
Mhm.
and he can't just come over here, anytime, is what I'm saying. He'll need time when he gets back, because they're planning the trip now with his church. And I don't know if he could get over here before next Thursday to do that, that's what I'm saying.
Depending on what the committee decides tonight, as far as the timeline of enforcing that violation, we can work with that with code enforcement as a separate matter. You all don't have to worry about the timeline, just the decisions on your agenda tonight.
Good deal.
Okay? Thank you.
Would that work?
Yeah, as long as we have time for him to get back, so we can do that, because I'm sure it'll be a big expense, and it's just her. It's just her and her 3 dogs, so.
Returning back to the committee discussion, yes, that's the reason we have applications for these type of things, so you know what you can and can't do and what the code is, so.
And how much does the fence permit cost?
It's free.
It's free.
So it didn't cost anything other than
I paid $100.
To be heard here for the variance.
but if you had gone for the permit, it wouldn't have cost anything.
And that's what I'm hearing, like, heard Mr. Berryhill say that you had been told about the permit. So I'm still reverting back to Mr. Davis's question as to why didn't you go ahead and get the permit?
Well, I know you could run straight. I know you could do chain link, you got to be very far in to do that.
You need to speak in the mic.
You have to,
I know you could do chain link, and I don't want chain link because it's ugly. I mean, I came up here 3 or 4 different times. I'll do whatever you ask to do, okay? But I don't know if I can do it in the timely manner
Well, we mentioned that we'll be lenient on the time frame.
As long as you work within the perimeters of the planning department, I think there'll be no problem.
And when you apply for the new fence, or that fence that moved back, then apply for the free permit, you will know exactly where it can and can't be built.
Which would be your first step. Permit and then move the fence.
Okay.
Are you looking for multiple, do we need this to be broken down into multiple motions, or can it just be kind of?
No, I think you could do that all in one motion, however you guys were thinking about this.
Are we ready for a motion, or we still have more discussion?
No, I think we're ready.
I think we're ready for a motion.
I move that we deny the appeal and uphold the overlay decision to disapprove. And we deny the variance for the height of the front yard fence. And we will defer the timeline to moving the fence to the development department and require an application to be submitted with approval of the joint or overlay for the new fence.
I second.
Does that cover
So,
everything?
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please raise your right hand. 5-4, so the motion carries. Jenny, can you tell the applicant what their next steps will be?
Sure. If you have any reason that you would like to appeal that decision, then you have 3 days to file an appeal. Otherwise, what we will do is you'll hear from code enforcement through the Office of Department of Development Services. And we'll work with you on getting a new permit application in for exactly where you'll put that new fence and discuss a timeline with you to get this fence in compliance.
Jenny, we still have the open application for the deck and the open application for the certificate of occupancy for the home occupation.
Correct. We will get any final review from the joint or overlay committee toward the deck. They have the finished structure. If the planning committee has any point that they would like to make toward that, we would need a second motion.
Well, my thing with the deck is if it passes inspection, and it will be hidden by the fence, so it wouldn't be viewed from the street anyway, I don't have a problem with, as long as, retroactively allowing that.
I will say to that, the overlays address not just anything that's viewed from the street, but anything that is a permanent structural change to the lot. So I totally understand what you're saying. I just want to give you that information.
I can address that.
Yes, please come up, Mr. Berryhill.
Pretty much anything that changes the footprint of the property requires overlay review. You add a deck, you add a front porch, you add a driveway, anything that changes the footprint. Now, Jenny can speak to this, a typical application or a typical permit request usually is met with an answer in 24 to 48 hours. So with a permit request, this would have never come to y'all. This would have been something that on that Saturday that she did the fence, this would have already been taken care of. I mean, we have one currently that's being reviewed that just turned 20-something hours tonight. So it's a pretty quick process, even when there's a lot of stuff going on. Even when we reviewed the new project that's going on in Ken County, which is a lot more involved than this. It's pretty streamlined. We're not trying to keep anybody from doing something on their property. We just want to help the neighbors follow what the code is and understand what the code is.
Hold on, Mr. Berryhill, sorry. Did you all have a chance to review that deck yet for any comment on any changes that might need to be made for it to be in compliance?
We did not.
Okay.
Actually, we did review it. We don't have any comments.
Oh, I see.
It pretty much, just so, and this may sound awful of us, but pretty much anything that comes to us after the fact, it's really going to have to be something for us to approve. Now, y'all may say, okay, well, y'all ran kind of sticks in the mud. The neighborhood puts out on the neighborhood page regularly what these things are. There are questions from neighbors that are regularly answered, and usually the answer to that question from somebody in the know is to call the planning department. Now, you'll have neighbors who will respond, oh, you don't need that. Oh, you can do this. But if they would just call the planning department and follow the directions that the planning department gives them, it's pretty streamlined. I know I've talked to Russ numerous times on the projects I've got going on. I've talked to him numerous times on the projects that other contractors have going on in the neighborhood. And it's pretty streamlined when you involve the planning department.
So I have one quick question. So getting back to the deck, they already have the permit for the deck. It's already been submitted, right? Has the design review committee reviewed the deck?
We have, but we haven't sent Jenny a response for the second time that she requested. First time we responded, unanimously denied it.
Because of the pending fence, but not...
No. It was denied when it was constructed because the permit was applied for after construction.
So...
I mean, there's not a whole lot to inspect once it's already built. I mean, most of our people that are on the committee are not builders. So they're going to, at the point that you've already constructed it without prior approval, we kind of depend on the planning department to either levy a penalty because they built without a permit, or guide them as to making it city approved. All we're doing is looking at, as a gentleman pointed out, can it be seen from the street? Is it a distraction to the neighborhood? Is it in keeping with the neighborhood? We have one fence, and it's probably been 3 years, 4 years. Different situation, but their backyard, their actual back line was a front yard. It backed up to the next street. He built a 4-foot fence that you could see through. It's still there. He got a permit. He got a review from the neighborhood. There are fences in the neighborhood, as the resident said, that are not in compliance. But either they were built prior to the tornado, because the tornado is kind of our watermark. That's when we started having discussions about the overlay. So there was a lot of busy work, probably within that 6 to 9 months after the tornado, to get things built that really didn't fit code before there was an overlay.
And that's where the fence permit comes in.
That's where the fence permit.
That was a citywide thing. After the tornado, everybody said, well, my fence was here, let me go 1 more foot, or, stuff like that. So, and it's free, it does not cost anything. They'll make sure the property lines are good, make sure, is it chain link, is it wood, is it see-through? And it's not a burden to get a permit for a fence. It's not a burden to get a permit, period.
You find out a lot of things that you didn't know.
What would be the permit fee for that deck?
Depends
Roughly.
on the cost of the deck.
We're talking what, $20 or $30?
Jenny,
Y'all,
We're talking-
I need to speak on the deck because she didn't have anything to do
yeah,
with it.
hold on just one moment, we'll give you
But
time.
my point, the fence permit's free, the deck permit, $20 or $30?
Free.
Okay, free. So, we're not, it's cost more money for you to not follow the rules and us come up here to sort all this out than if you had just followed the rules in the beginning. The fence cannot stay, it's gotta be moved back. I see the deck a little differently, that if it would pass a city inspection and it's gonna be hidden by the fence anyway, I don't have as much of a problem as long as she goes through with the permit. But, if it is subpar, if the city inspector turns it down, then it needs to come down too, definitely.
It's actually already been reviewed by our building department and passed for building
But that's just
integrity.
me talking, I don't know what the rest of the,
And I can tell you as a neighbor, as a resident, I agree with you. But as the chairman of the overlay, I've been given directions.
and I understand, and you
But I
want to hold to
100%
that.
agree with what you're saying.
Yeah, and I understand that you have to defend your,
I have to be the bad guy standing up here and be the mouthpiece for the overlay.
But as I'm looking at it, is that if it does pass inspection, which it has, and then we're gonna, move the fence back, it's not gonna be seen anyway, then I don't have a problem as long as the permit is, just get the permit, to allow the deck part to stay. But that's just me, I don't know the rest of y'all.
So Jenny, the deck part has been resolved. Is that what I heard you say?
With Mr. Berry Hill's understanding or indication that it does not, according to the design standards on the overlay, and I think we can close that deck permit out.
Okay,
yes.
so it's been resolved, it's okay.
Any other questions related to that?
Okay, yeah, come on up, Ms. Walls.
Sorry. I want to speak about the deck. Valerie turned 50 last year in July, and I wanted to build her a deck. And so I hired 2 guys to build just a stone deck. And they made such a horrible mess of it, which cost me $3,600, that my son-in-law said he would come and build her a proper deck. Now, Valerie didn't have anything to do with that deck or getting a permit or anything. That's all on me. I didn't realize you had to get a permit. I've never, aside from rebuilding my house after the tornado, which tore it up on Joyner Street, I had never dealt with. I just thought you could build a deck, and I was doing this for her 50th birthday. So it's not her fault that she didn't go get a permit. That's on me. I just wanted to clear that up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so there's no motion that needs to be made on that.
Yeah.
I think we are good.
Well, yeah, all right. Moving on, the second item, the July Planning Committee meeting schedule.
Oh, that should say August, my apologies.
The
Does Jenny need to tell her what they need to do?
I did.
Yeah, she did.
Yeah. Oh, yes, ma'am.
I know my neighbor sent some stuff in. Y'all,
Yeah, there were letters.
We have the public comments we received.
Thank you.
The work session, Monday, July 31st, and the regularly scheduled public meeting, August the 7th. We have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved, we are adjourned.